In 2007, while Facebook was still figuring out how to organize posts chronologically and Twitter was limiting everyone to 140 characters, a small startup called FriendFeed was quietly revolutionizing how we consume social media. Founded by 4 former Google employees led by Bret Taylor, FriendFeed introduced something the internet had never seen before: a real-time, intelligently aggregated newsfeed that pulled together updates from dozens of social networks, blogs, and services into one seamless stream. What makes this story particularly tragic is that FriendFeed didn't just predict the future of social media, they invented it, only to watch Facebook steal their innovations, acquire their company for talent, and then systematically dismantle everything they had built. This is the story of how the most influential social media platform you've never heard of created the blueprint for modern social networking, then disappeared into the digital graveyard of Silicon Valley acquisitions. Bret Taylor wasn't just any Google employee when he left to start FriendFeed in October 2007. As the co-creator of Google Maps and the mastermind behind the Google Maps API that enabled countless location-based applications, Taylor had already proven he could build products that changed how people interacted with technology. Joining him were 3 other Google veterans: Jim Norris, who had worked on Google's enterprise products; Paul Buchheit, the creator of Gmail and the person who coined Google's "Don't Be Evil" motto; and Sanjeev Singh, a seasoned engineer who had contributed to Google's core infrastructure. Together, they represented nearly 2 decades of combined experience at one of tech's most innovative companies, and they were betting their careers on a radical idea: that people didn't want to check 15 different websites to stay updated on their friends' digital lives. Their timing couldn't have been more perfect. Social media was exploding, but it was also fragmenting. People were spreading their digital presence across MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, YouTube, LinkedIn, and dozens of other platforms, creating an exhausting cycle of constant checking and updating. FriendFeed launched in February 2008 with a deceptively simple proposition: connect all your social media accounts, and we'll create one unified feed of everything happening in your network. But calling it simple was like calling the iPhone just a phone. Under the hood, FriendFeed was performing technical magic that wouldn't become standard across the industry for years. They were aggregating real-time data from over 40 different services, including Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Flickr, Delicious, Amazon, Netflix, and countless blogs through RSS feeds. The system could detect when you uploaded a photo to Flickr, shared a link on Delicious, tweeted something clever, or even bought a book on Amazon, then intelligently organize all this activity into a chronological stream that your friends could follow, comment on, and discuss. What made this remarkable wasn't just the technical achievement of aggregating all this data in real time, something that required sophisticated APIs and constant monitoring of dozens of different services, but the user experience they created around it. FriendFeed introduced features that are now so common we take them for granted: the like button, real-time commenting, the ability to share and reshare content with your own commentary, and an algorithmic feed that could surface the most interesting content from your network. The technical innovations behind FriendFeed were years ahead of their time and would eventually become the foundation of modern social media. They were among the first to implement real-time updates using a technology called long polling, which allowed new posts and comments to appear instantly without requiring users to refresh the page, a feature that wouldn't arrive on Facebook until 2009. Their search functionality was revolutionary, allowing users to search through their entire social media history across all connected services, essentially creating a personal search engine for everything you and your friends had ever shared online. FriendFeed also pioneered the concept of social media analytics, showing users detailed statistics about their posting patterns, most popular content, and engagement levels across different platforms. Perhaps most importantly, they solved the signal-to-noise problem that plagued early social media by introducing intelligent filtering and ranking algorithms that could surface the most relevant and engaging content from your network. Their Best of Day feature used engagement signals like comments and likes to highlight the most interesting discussions, while their Rooms feature allowed users to create topical discussion spaces around shared interests, essentially inventing what would later become Facebook groups and Reddit-style communities. What truly set FriendFeed apart wasn't just aggregation, but the vibrant community and discussion culture they fostered around shared content. Unlike Facebook's early focus on connecting college friends or Twitter's emphasis on broadcasting short messages, FriendFeed became a place for substantive conversations about everything from technology and politics to photography and cooking. The platform attracted an incredibly engaged user base of early adopters, technologists, and social media enthusiasts who turned every shared article, photo, or link into potential fodder for deep discussions. Their comment system was revolutionary. Threaded conversations that could branch off into multiple topics, real-time notifications when someone responded to your comment, and the ability to like individual comments within a discussion. This created a snowball effect where interesting content would generate dozens of thoughtful comments, which would attract more users to the conversation, which would generate even more engagement. Tech luminaries like Robert Scoble, Leo Laporte, and Om Malik became FriendFeed power users, using the platform to share industry insights and engage in real-time discussions about technology trends. The platform's Room feature created specialized communities around topics like photography, where professional photographers would share their latest work and techniques, or technology, where industry insiders would discuss the latest startup news and product launches. By 2009, FriendFeed had grown to over 1 million users and was processing millions of social media updates daily. But they faced a fundamental problem that would prove insurmountable. They were building on top of platforms that were increasingly seeing them as competition rather than partners. Facebook, Twitter, and other social networks began restricting API access, limiting how much data third-party applications could access and how frequently they could retrieve updates. Facebook, in particular, started implementing rate limits and restrictions that made it difficult for FriendFeed to provide real-time updates from the platform where many users had their most active social lives. This wasn't accidental. Facebook was simultaneously developing their own newsfeed algorithm and real-time features, essentially copying FriendFeed's innovations while cutting off their access to the data that made those innovations possible. Twitter followed suit, restricting API access and eventually charging for premium data access that made FriendFeed's business model unsustainable. The writing was on the wall. Major social platforms were moving toward a walled garden approach where user data stayed within their ecosystems, making cross-platform aggregation increasingly difficult and expensive. Meanwhile, Facebook was aggressively rolling out features that looked suspiciously similar to FriendFeed's innovations: real-time comments, improved newsfeed algorithms, and enhanced sharing capabilities. The acquisition talks between Facebook and FriendFeed began in early 2009, but this wasn't a typical startup acquisition story. Facebook wasn't primarily interested in FriendFeed's user base or even their platform. They wanted the team that had successfully solved problems Facebook was still struggling with. Mark Zuckerberg had watched FriendFeed pioneer real-time social media interactions, sophisticated feed algorithms, and seamless user experiences. And he knew that talent was worth more than the company's modest user numbers. In August 2009, Facebook announced they were acquiring FriendFeed for approximately $50 million, a figure that seemed modest even at the time, but made sense when viewed as a talent acquisition rather than a user acquisition. The deal was structured to bring the entire FriendFeed team to Facebook, where they would work on improving Facebook's core products, rather than continuing to develop FriendFeed as a standalone platform. Brett Taylor, in particular, was seen as a prize catch. His experience building Google Maps and creating FriendFeed's innovative features made him exactly the kind of product visionary Facebook needed to compete with Twitter and Google's growing social media ambitions. Once inside Facebook, the FriendFeed team's impact was immediate and transformative, even as their original creation was slowly strangled. Brett Taylor quickly rose through Facebook's ranks, eventually becoming Chief Technology Officer and playing a crucial role in developing some of Facebook's most important features. The real-time commenting system that had made FriendFeed discussions so engaging was integrated into Facebook's platform, making conversations more dynamic and engaging. The algorithmic feed ranking that FriendFeed had pioneered evolved into Facebook's EdgeRank algorithm, which determined what content users saw in their news feeds based on engagement signals and relationship strength. Taylor also led the development of Facebook's Like button, a feature that had first appeared on FriendFeed, and oversaw its expansion across the web through Facebook's social plugins, essentially making the Like button ubiquitous across millions of websites. Other FriendFeed innovations found their way into Facebook's DNA, Improved search functionality, better mobile experiences, and more sophisticated privacy controls all bore the fingerprints of the FriendFeed team's expertise. Meanwhile, FriendFeed itself was kept alive but essentially abandoned, receiving minimal updates or promotion from its new parent company. The slow death of FriendFeed after the Facebook acquisition became a masterclass in how large tech companies neutralize competitive threats through acquisition. Rather than shutting down FriendFeed immediately, which might have generated negative publicity, Facebook simply let it stagnate while redirecting all innovation resources toward their core platform. New feature development stopped, mobile apps remained outdated as smartphones became the primary way people accessed social media, and the user experience gradually degraded as APIs changed and integrations broke. The vibrant community that had made FriendFeed special began to drift away, frustrated by the lack of updates and improvements. Many power users migrated to Twitter, Google+, or back to Facebook itself, taking their conversations and content with them. By 2012, FriendFeed had become a ghost town, still functional but largely forgotten, visited only by a small group of nostalgic early adopters who remembered what it had been like. Facebook made token efforts to maintain the platform, fixing critical bugs and keeping servers running, but it was clear that FriendFeed was being maintained as a legacy service rather than developed as a competitive product. The final blow came in 2015 when Facebook announced that FriendFeed would be shut down completely, giving users a few months to export their data before the service went dark forever. The closure of FriendFeed in April 2015 marked the end of one of social media's most innovative platforms, but its legacy lived on in virtually every social media feature we use today. The real-time commenting systems that make Facebook discussions engaging, the algorithmic feeds that determine what content appears in our Twitter timelines, the like buttons that appear across millions of websites, the ability to reshare content with our own commentary, all of these ubiquitous features trace their origins back to FriendFeed's pioneering work between 2007 and 2009. More broadly, FriendFeed proved that there was enormous user demand for intelligent social media aggregation and cross-platform integration, validating approaches that companies like Hootsuite, Buffer, and TweetDeck would later use to build successful businesses. The platform also demonstrated the power of real-time social interactions and community-driven content curation, principles that would influence everything from Reddit's voting system to TikTok's engagement algorithms. Perhaps most importantly, FriendFeed showed that small teams of experienced engineers could rapidly innovate and create features that would take larger companies years to develop and implement. The fact that a 4-person startup could build technology that Facebook eventually needed to acquire and integrate speaks to both the power of focused innovation and the challenges that even the most innovative startups face when competing against platform monopolies. Today, as we debate the power of large tech companies and their tendency to acquire potential competitors, FriendFeed serves as a perfect case study of how promising innovations can be absorbed and redirected rather than allowed to compete and flourish independently. The story of FriendFeed ultimately represents both the best and worst of Silicon Valley's innovation ecosystem, a brilliant team solving real problems with elegant technology, only to see their creation absorbed by a larger competitor and slowly dismantled. While the FriendFeed team found success and influence within Facebook, building features used by billions of people worldwide, the platform they originally created represented a different vision of social media, more open, more collaborative, and more focused on meaningful discussion than engagement metrics. In many ways, FriendFeed was too early and too idealistic for its time, built on the assumption that social platforms would remain open and collaborative rather than becoming the closed ecosystems they are today. But their technical innovations and user experience insights proved so valuable that they became the foundation upon which modern social media was built, even as the original platform disappeared into the digital graveyard. FriendFeed may be gone, but every time you like a post, comment on a real-time discussion, or scroll through an algorithmically curated feed, you're experiencing the legacy of 4 Google engineers who believed they could build a better way to connect and share in the digital age.